Wonderful.
All right. Good
Hi.
evening, friends. Welcome to a very special episode of Career Shifts podcast. I'm your host, Gopal, and today really feels surreal as I host the 25th episode of this incredible journey. It's a mix of joy, gratitude, and touch of disbelief as well as far how we have come. When I started this podcast, my goal was very simple: to create a platform where career stories could inspire others and embrace growth, change, and challenges. Today, as I hit this milestone, I realize this podcast has given me as much as I have set out to give. I feel an immense sense of pride reflecting the incredible conversations I've had so far. Each guest has brought in their own unique set of experiences, perspectives, lessons, making this journey deeply enriching. It's also humbling to see how these stories resonate with you, sparking conversations and reflections beyond these episodes as well. The milestone wouldn't have been possible without you, our listeners, who have tuned in, shared feedback, supported this journey all this while. To the guests who have trusted me with their stories, thank you. And to all of you who keep joining in week after week, thank you from bottom of my heart. This episode has become more than a collection of episodes for me. We had one, which is the episode 24, just earlier this week, which was a celebration of sorts on its own. But even today's is going to be celebration of resilience, reinvention, and human connection. Episode 25 reminds me that small, consistent steps lead to meaningful achievements. And I'm so excited about stories, learnings, and shifts that are still to come. What a better way to celebrate today's milestone with Dr. T.V. Rao, a name closely tied to the growth of HR and leadership in India. Dr. Rao, and he has asked me not to call him the father of HRD in India, has founded the National HRD Network and pioneered the idea of HRD as a key function in organizations. His work has reshaped how organizations approach leadership, workplace culture, and people development. On a personal note, however, Dr. Rao is much more to me. I met him first in 2019 at an NHRD event, and honestly, it was a fanboy moment for me. I've only read books, learned about him through my education, and a couple of years later, when I joined in the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, I reached out to him for advice. He graciously invited me to his home, and during one of his visits, he even came down to visit the School of Public Policy where I was working. We sat down for what turned out to be a very memorable conversation. He started sharing incredible stories of work that the Institute had done and in the field of public policy as well. What has always stood out for me about Dr. Rao is his humility, his vast knowledge, and his ability to connect through stories that inspire and educate. So, when I invited Dr. Rao to the podcast, he said, Gopal, I don't think I have much to say about career shifts, but I can talk about my experiments and experiences. And that's exactly why he's here today. Careers today are rarely linear. They demand experimentation, adaptability, resilience, and who better than Dr. Rao to share his stories and wisdom, inspiring us to embrace these qualities in our own journeys. In today's episode, we will explore Dr. Rao's journey and his experience. And since this episode is live, we will also take questions as they come along. So don't hold back. This is your chance to engage directly with one of the greatest minds in HR and leadership. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Dr. Rao to Career Shifts podcast. Dr. Rao, it's such an honor for me to have you here on this podcast today. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Gopal, and congratulations for completing 24 successful episodes. You don't know how much good you are doing for people, particularly those who are looking for meaningful careers. So that's
Yeah.
very good. I witnessed the last one and I felt very, very happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us today. And I think as we have always spoken, and even in my past episodes, what we are going through is very different times, and not like what careers used to be in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Perhaps liberalization has a lot to do with how things have shifted. Technology, of course, has its own role in many ways, but we'll discover all of that in a bit. But before we start, I want to take you back probably to your journey where it all started. So if you could walk through, and I don't know if this is a question that people have often asked you or if you have shared this, but I'll still go ahead and ask this. How did this journey start for you? Like, you know, um, where did the desire to do a PhD come in, and what took you to pursuing HR as a career path, and how did that journey happen? So, if you can share some thoughts on that, that would be really helpful.
Well, actually, if I have to trace, I mean, it's a long story. I would only say um, it's not a planned kind of thing. Things happen in life, one after the other, and you're not very sure what is going to be the next, until such time that you know, okay, now the track is set. I started as a mathematics, physics, chemistry student. I did my BSc. So my
Hmm.
interest at that time was, I mean, BSc you do in those years by mugging up. Even maths you mug up, chemistry you mug up. And I got a little better marks in chemistry, while I got good marks in my school in
Hmm.
mathematics. So I was wanting to do chemistry. But there's somebody who spotted that I'm too young to do an MSc chemistry, because there is a principal of Loyola College who felt that if you want to do an MSc chemistry, you need to be a little more mature. I think I must be about 18 years at the time I finished my BSc,
Oh.
pretty early. So I think he rightly gathered. So he said, I'll give you 2 years demonstrator's job in chemistry lab in Loyola College.
Hmm.
After that, you apply and go for MSc. But lo and behold, he sent me one day a postcard. These, some of these priests are extremely good, and once they start liking you, he's an Irish priest, Father Douglas Gordon. Most people in those years knew him, Loyola College principal. One day I get a card from him saying that, look, I would have paid you 75 rupees a month as demonstrator, but here is a college that is offering a 1 year degree, B.Ed, and will pay you stipend. So why don't you go and do your B.Ed? So that's how I landed up in Regional College of Education, Mysore. And I was
Oh.
again the youngest of the people who applied. I used
Hmm.
to be doing a little bit of dramatics, and I still remember that I didn't know whether the professors observed everything you did those 2 days, but there were a series of selection criteria, and I got selected amidst all experienced people. Then I did my B.Ed there. And after that B.Ed, wanted to go back to Loyola College, take one more year's job of chemistry, and then. But the professor of psychology who just returned from US and taught me psychology at B.Ed, he said you will be wasting your life if you by doing chemistry. Now this is very important. Sometimes people observe you and tell you what you are good at. He said you have a special aptitude for psychology. I didn't know. I was topping in his
Oh.
class, but I didn't know that. So he said that you must do your psychology. I said I am a BSc and I don't have a BA in psychology. And normally, those years you are admitted to MA psychology only if you
Yeah.
have a BA in psychology. Who will admit me? He said there is
Hmm.
a professor I know. He is very young fellow and bright, and he might make an exception because our college teaches um psychology equivalent to that of a BA or equivalent to even MEd. Because
Hmm.
those years we had a collaboration with Ohio State University in Mysore.
Sure.
So he wrote a letter to the Osmania professor, and then
Hmm.
the professor made an exception for me. I mean, those years, these are all exceptions. People say, yeah, I think this college is new and it's. So he admitted me, and again and they were all right. I topped and created a new record. That record
Oh.
for 15, 20 years, I'm told nobody broke that record in psychology. So that was the time when I was in second year. One of my seniors went abroad, and we all went to the airport, to
Hmm.
Hyderabad airport, to see him off. And 3 months
Big and great
later,
airport.
right? 3 months later, we get a letter. We all get a letter. This is by name on Kodandapani. That Dr. Parikh, he was working with Dr. Uday Parikh, and
Hmm.
many interesting things. Uday Parikh came to receive him at the airport, and 3 months later, he even bought his car for maybe $500 or whatever it is. He was driving his car. Now, these are all, you're a young fellow in psychology set. So, I wanted to do my PhD in North Carolina, University of North, and with
Wow.
Dr. Parikh. So, that is
Hmm.
how. So, I wrote to Dr. Parikh, and Dr. Parikh wrote to me saying that, look, I'm returning back to India. I'm sorry I have
Hmm.
no fellowships, but I'll write to a few people recommending. And he wrote to Rensis Leckert. This is the year 1966. He wrote to University of Michigan, Rensis Leckert. And
Hmm.
I actually, those years, I mean, we were all kids not knowing anything. I applied to the Michigan State University and got a letter from Lickert saying, I don't find your application. So the
Oh
time was already
goodness.
over. So I ended up, my professor in Osmania recommended me to Andhra University. I went to Andhra, started the psychology department there. So Dr.
Hmm.
Parikh returned, and I registered for my PhD. Now your question was PhD. I can tell you
Yes.
long stories like this. So I was to work on the impact of subliminal perception on
Hmm.
dreams. That was Andhra University was specializing. Some special
Wow.
equipment was got from Germany. So you are exposed to words and pictures which for a fraction of a second you wouldn't even see. And then we have to find out whether you dreamt that picture, although you couldn't see it fully.
Wow.
That would have been nice, but I didn't continue there. Parikh came back and I joined Parikh in Delhi. And then I couldn't continue my Andhra University registration. That is how I
Yeah.
ended up registering for the Sardar Patel University. So, all these, you are not born to do PhD, but you, one after the other events led to this. And I think once you discover you had an aptitude in psychology, that fixes a number of things. So
Yeah.
I would attribute to this discovery by one of my professors saying that, look, you have an aptitude, you prosper well. Then I think a series of things take place. I think it's a long story. I have talked about it in brief here and there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that makes
Sure.
sense.
No, it does. It does. And goes back to the point a lot of other guests also have made, which is sometimes a couple of themes that emerges. One is that you don't always really know your worth. Someone else does more than you.
Yes,
So they tell you, and
absolutely.
you have to follow that path, which is incredible. I see the same theme repeating. And
Yeah.
secondly, I think when it comes to making decisions, it's not always that you will have to stick with it. You may have to, find a better one that is right for you, and it's okay to pivot into doing something else. And that's worked so well, and so glad you took the decisions that you did take,
Yes.
and we could have this chat today, if I can say that. so, so, there is a lot that we can cover about your career within the academic institutions, most importantly the IMA, and I'm sure there is a lot that has gone into developing frameworks, concepts, models, looking at evolving, how industries have evolved, rather. And I listened to your talk, I think, a couple of months ago when we were at the GHRC where Nathan Sri had invited you. You,
Yes.
you were talking
Yeah.
about the whole how you saw the industry evolve pre-liberalization and post-liberalization, what has happened. But at what point of time did you feel that there is a need for us to bring a better structure to HR as a fraternity? Um, and again, HR today is very different than what it used to be, perhaps even 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I started my career. So I'm sure you have a lifetime of the entire view. At what point of time you felt that there was a need to bring a more formal structure to HR than what it was in the past?
Well, I think if I have to trace back, it is the work we did with Larsen and Toubro in 1974.
Hmm.
73 December I joined IIM Ahmedabad. 74 Dr. Parikh was invited by L&T to examine their performance appraisal system. And
Hmm.
incidentally, it's interesting, this appraisal system was designed by one Professor K.K. Anand, who was a
Hmm.
professor at IIM Ahmedabad, but later
Hmm.
joined L&T as a GM or vice president or whatever they called. In fact, at one point of time, he offered me a job 4 years before that from Delhi to join him, but I didn't do that. I think it's again the choices that you make. So,
Yeah.
74, when we were invited, we interviewed. They had a good
Hmm.
system, I must say. They had a very good system of performance appraisal, starting with self
Hmm.
appraisal, and then I think there is a certain amount of participation and so on. When we interviewed a good number of managers, Uday Parikh and I interviewed almost about 40 to 50 managers at the time. 40 to 50 was a big number in those
Yeah.
days. When we interviewed, I think people used to ask questions. Where is performance in the appraisal? The question like this. And number two, how do you think we will perform if the company does not make sure that what are we expected to perform, which gave birth to role clarity? And
Hmm.
if they don't keep telling us how well we are doing, how do you think we perform? I think it is the questions managers have asked which got us convinced that the personnel department, which they had excellent personal managers, people like K.K. Anand, Dr. Denison Pereira, who is a psychologist, very humane, very understanding, but personal departments were more driven by managing regulations, administration,
Correct.
while they
Compliance.
did a
Yeah.
lot of training work and so on. So we were convinced, both Uday Parikh and I, that personnel department has some structural issues because by
Hmm.
structure they are control oriented, and how much so development they do, they will be perceived more as a threat or fear. Out of fear, people. So we said there is a need for a new department we called as Human Resource Development Department. And in fact,
Hmm.
I must tell you at this point of time, we designed an appraisal system in which appraisal ratings are shown to the individual and they were not linked to rewards. Because we said if you link the appraisal with rewards, then people will
Hmm.
be more discussing the politics of rewards rather than discussing whether they can learn something or not. So I
Correct.
think since you asked at the time, it is that 1974-75 interviews by Uday Parikh and me with the line managers. And I must tell you, one of the line managers, young managers who impressed me most was A.M. Naik. He was a young manager, and I remember him taking me with smoking a cigar, and then he was quite heavy in outlook. Took me to the canteen, and then professor, tell me where is performance in this performance appraisal. So I think people like him, by raising
Yeah.
critical questions, forcefully got us to think that what is important in organizations is to help people to be clear about their job, build capabilities to do the job, give feedback and help them to do the job, and motivate them by creating an atmosphere, not merely by rewards, by creating an atmosphere. So that's how we said competence building, commitment building, culture building. So
Hmm.
we designed that. That is the starting point. And even today, I think that stands the same. With all the work of Dave Ulrich, if you go deeper into whatever he is doing, I think everyone will come back. People will work, will give their best if they have capability to do whatever they are expected to do, and if they are motivated to do, and there is a culture that is a very supportive,
Hmm.
lasting kind of a culture. So it started in 74, and it started building up with
Hmm.
one after the other. I don't know if you want me to, because one of the problems with a professor is he can go on lecturing. I'll stop here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think the whole idea is to get more perspective and insights on what led to this. And
Yes,
and the second related point on that I had was like 74, and we are in 2024. It's almost 50 years, and things
yes.
have evolved quite a lot. Yet we keep hearing a lot of people within our own community and fraternity, if I were to put myself as HR professional for a moment, that we haven't reached the stage of having a voice at the table. Um, and perhaps this could have been one of the reasons why you thought of bringing NHRD as one of the bodies that could potentially look into mass scale engagement and training. But what has changed? Has anything evolved? Has have problems kind of gotten a little more challenging? Why have we not reached the stage where we are able to get the voice at the table or seat at the table, if I can say that? Any thoughts on that, if you have?
Well, actually, when we began, seat at the table was not much of an issue. One
Hmm.
S.R. Subramaniam, who was GM Pawai, he was made vice president, organization, personal and OD, which included HRD. I think he
Hmm.
almost became a board member. I'm sure you know that he later became president of Larsen and Toubro and so on. So it
Hmm.
started in late 70s. I think HR
Hmm.
was taken very seriously by people like Hawk Larsen himself when he was,
Hmm.
as long as he was as NM Desai and others.
Hmm.
Same thing
Hmm.
happened with State Bank of India. I think after Uday Parikh gave a talk of HRD in 1975 itself, Talwar, I think, created a position of a deputy managing director in
Hmm.
equivalent to that in State Bank of India. Um, Crompton Greaves, for example, Noria, who was a marketing vice president, I think he gave a lot of. They may not have been a board members, but they took a lot of interest in this. So,
Hmm.
power, whether you are a designated HR person or you are a chief executive, you wouldn't have done well without human resources. So, the reason
True.
for starting HRD network was not for a seat at the table, for lifting up the HR position, because we are
Hmm.
convinced HR is the job of everyone. Number one, it is not only the job of HR people, but
Very
HR
true.
people have a important role to play by treating HR as a philosophy. So HR is a philosophy. It's set of values. It's
Hmm.
I think that is what got us to got me to start HRD network. What happened was between 1975 and 83, about those five
Hmm.
6 years, many people without understanding what is HRD redesignated training as HRD. A
Hmm.
training center is suddenly called HRD
Yeah.
college, uh, or personnel is called as HR department, and HR department also
Hmm.
is HRD. So you're doing the same thing. Okay, same thing in terms of administration, controls, legal aspects, industrial
Yeah.
relations, and so on, which are not bad, which are necessary. But you
Yeah.
called yourself HRD, there was no development. So the reason was we have to disseminate this
Yeah.
whole HR philosophy as building competencies, creating happiness at work, treating
Hmm.
human beings as human beings. I think that is how we started. But I think it took a long time. And I don't think that
Hmm.
HRD network by itself, it may have been one of the factors. I think the realization human beings are very important. We needed
Hmm.
COVID-19 to happen. It is COVID-19 which has got
Unfortunately.
a lot more, yeah, unfortunately. And suddenly they started realizing that we have this specimen called HRD manager, who is supposed to be looking after the mental health of people, who is supposed to be looking after the so many other things. So I think
Hmm.
there is a new positioning of HR, but I don't
Hmm.
want to say we have still come anywhere near what it should be. So
Hmm.
I would think that HR as a philosophy from HRD department to everyone's job has evolved much more as a consequence of so many things that have happened in the country. First, I
Hmm.
think people realized that if you don't pay attention to people, you can't get anything done. Post liberalization, when multinationals
Hmm.
entered in our country and they were
Hmm.
quality driven and they were able to manufacture products with sometimes with one third of the manpower that we had, and even I
Hmm.
think one tenth in some cases, we discovered how much people can do. But if you have to get them to do it, you have to be quality driven, you have to be, I think, systems driven, and so on. So quality movement came, and after that, IT sector has got a lot of good things. I think one of the things IT got to us was this designation free. You don't have to worry about whether you're vice president, president, etc. I think all of them were, I mean, very simple, understandable. You may start as a programmer, but you become later a team lead and a project lead and a program lead. And I think it doesn't matter what designation you carry; it is the work that you do. I think this was a great thing that has happened. And then,
Mm.
of course, COVID. So I would say that on one hand, the HRD network and all other, I mean, innovative good companies have been promoting HR as philosophy. Not too many of them. It takes a long time. On the other
Mm.
hand, it is a series of events like liberalization, like I
Mm.
think the crisis that we have had,
Mm.
Y2K, and all kinds of things that have happened, and largely COVID 19. These were responsible.
Mm.
Now, today, if you ask me, there is a lot more positiveness to HR. People think HR is the job of everyone. That is why when people give this funny title of Father of HRD, I say, don't call me Father of HRD. Everyone is his or her own father. You are your own father, you are of HRD or mother of HRD. If you don't take charge of your HR, nobody will take care of. The HRD department is there only to facilitate. Ultimately, you are responsible. And that is what should be the philosophy of HRD network or Academy of HRD or anyone that we have been, some of us have been trying to propagate. I think, I
Sure.
hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. You
Networks,
did. Absolutely.
the reason was to disseminate a philosophy.
The philosophy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I think wonderfully said. And I think you're right in terms of the ownership and accountability of making sure that a field profession
Yeah.
evolves is also as much as with the people that are there. Let's kind of shift to the modern day workforce or workplace aspects, and tying it to the theme of the podcast around the careers, right? I mean, I think
Yes.
if you really look at two or three elements, one is the individual himself or herself,
Yeah.
two, the organization he or she works for, three, the culture of the organization.
Yes.
And a lot has changed in the last few decades. Kudos to some of the uh, willfully done events and some
Yes.
unwillingly done events as well. Um, in this, what has happened is the role of a manager, and it could be any manager, not necessarily a HR manager, but the role of a manager has evolved quite a bit, and there has been a broader disconnect between uh, an individual caring for his team uh, as much as they used to do in the past. And that has led to workplace cultural issues, shorter career spans. People don't want to be loyal to the organizations. Um, Now, one can blame technology and many other things around this, but are we at a point where it is going to remain the same? Or are we at a point where we can reflect and still get back to some bit of old ways of working, where people are creating leaders who are there to inspire, and by that expect a bit of loyalty from their people as well? Like, where have we failed, if at all we have failed, and are we at a point beyond repair?
I think the last question now. Now, I don't think we are at a point which are beyond repair. Uh, I think the responsibility for building leaders has shifted from corporations to individuals themselves. Okay.
Interesting.
I, you can't anymore expect corporations to have leadership programs to build you as a leader because many
Mm.
corporations are not sure about their own future. VUCA world,
Wow.
barring
Covered.
some of
Yes.
the corporations, but even the best of the corporations, you are seeing what is happening in the last few days. Even you may
Mm.
have done extremely well, but suddenly something happens, and then you are into a totally volatile kind of a situation. But having said that, it is not that all companies are unstable. I think large number of there are good companies which are stable,
Yes.
which will survive and which will go in big ways. They were concerned in the years about succession planning, but
Mm.
today they will also hesitate because they are not very sure. While
Mm.
organization may want to build you as a leader, they are not sure of what are your plans, because options are open. Too many
Mm.
options are open, and there is a high degree of competition. So there is always a question mark on the part of institutions, how much do I do? So leadership development has become short term. Today it has become short term. Another thing that happened is, with all inventions in technology and post COVID, I think the focus has shifted for individual too. No matter what everyone does, ultimately you have to take care of your health
Yeah.
and you have to take care of your family. And one of the things COVID has taught was people can live happily with very meager income. You don't have to. And then there's plenty that is available. I think at one point there are so many people who are selling insurance companies, car insurance policies, cars, houses. There are
Yeah.
plenty all around, so you don't have to worry about it. In fact, I think you come to a place where I don't need to own a house. I can always get one
Mm.
on rent.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
you can live. A couple can live happily for a full month with
Yeah.
about 8-10,000 rupees. So people have experienced this. So as a
Mm.
result, what has become important is to caring for yourself, your mental health, and that's where career takes a totally different meaning. I want to be flexible. I want to be happy. I want to be closer to where my family is there, my spouse works, or my children are there, their education, etc., etc. So I think under these circumstances, leadership also gets transferred to the individual's ownership. Now,
Mm.
having said that, I don't want to say corporations should not be interested. I think corporations should be interested, because those corporations which create a culture of leadership. I mean, I create a
Mm.
culture. I think Uday Parikh and I talked of OCTAPACE culture. For us,
Mm.
openness, collaboration, trust. If you create a culture where people are trusted, people are respected, people have autonomy, if you have an OCTAPACE culture, you have already created opportunities for people to build themselves as leaders.
Correct.
Don't need to keep on saying, I'll send you to a leadership program, etc.,
Mm.
etc. So I think leadership has got transferred to the individual responsibility. Corporations have created climate where, I mean, if you want to build yourself, okay, we'll facilitate you, provided you give some kind of a guarantee that you are going to be with us and you will take us to places, both by your competencies and your commitment and things like that. So I think for today's situation, this is the best that can happen. In the olden
Mm.
days, I think we had largely family-owned businesses. The
Yeah.
owners like J.D. Birla or in the Murugappa group or TVS group, all these groups, the owners had a HR philosophy. There used to be one grand old man who had the HR philosophy. He percolated down and then he
Correct.
built leadership capabilities. Today, these are all replaced by systems, but even systems are going off in gig work world. Ultimately, we can only create, we can do this much. In fact, I think if I have to invest something on your leadership, I am saying, let me put it as a part of the cost to the company. Okay, so it
Interesting.
will be added to your salary. I may not
Yeah.
say it, I may not put
Yeah.
it on a piece of paper, but I am willing to argue by saying, "Arey, we sent you to Harvard, we have invested so
Mm.
much money on this, so it's a part of it. This is all our." I mean, that is the way
Invest.
situation
Yeah.
is. So I have
Yeah.
no regrets. I think this is wonderful. The only point I would say is, I think, recognize this change and
Mm.
you take charge of your leadership.
Mm.
That is why today self-management, what Peter Drucker talked about for years, I think is
Yeah.
coming back, and everyone is saying self-management is very, very crucial in any career you pick up. You have to manage
Yeah.
yourself. Emotional intelligence, spiritual
Mm.
intelligence. Now we're going to talk about it.
Yes.
Okay, all these kind of things. I don't know. Again, I hope I came somewhere near your question.
Yes, you did. Yes, absolutely. And that kind of takes me to the question that I had in terms of how people have now started experimenting with their careers. Yesterday, I was having an interesting conversation with my cousin, and he was asking me, I have 20 years of experience in this domain. If I were to shift into something totally different, can I do it? And I said, That's a very loaded question. We need to discuss the specifics, like what are you doing right now versus what you want to be doing. And there is no one, blanket answer for everybody. But you in your career have done quite a few of experiments yourself. Um, Looking at your experiments, is there any guidance or advice that you can give to people who are looking at probably starting their careers, or someone who is in mid careers, of what kind of experiments are okay to be done?
Well, my experiments were within a limited perspective. Let's say, as long as you are in IIM, you can experiment with courses. I think you can experiment with
Yeah.
new programs, which were
Yes.
certainly. I think I've done a number of programs.
Yeah.
I taught entrepreneurship. Then I started a social development programs. When I discovered that students were not getting a hang of how to spend the first 2 years of life, I started a course on managing your formative years and things like that, and so on. But I think the biggest career shift, if you want to call it a career shift, that has occurred was when I shifted from IIM and started the TVRLS. I mean,
Mm.
it's a big shift, and but
Yes.
for me, interestingly, I don't call it a shift because what I'm doing at TVRLS is more of an extension of what I was doing at IIM Ahmedabad. The
Yes.
reason is at all the programs I have started, for example, the 360-degree feedback program, which I started, the 360 term was not used, but we
Mm.
have done it in IIM Ahmedabad. And I found IIM is restrictive because every program that I ran, I needed to do a lot of pre-program work, and IIM
Mm.
was not doesn't have the facilities to do that.
Mm.
You
Mm.
have to process the questionnaires, you have to collect the questionnaires, then you have to prepare
Mm.
profiles and all those kind of things. I am able to do, I think between 1994 I left IIM, and by 2010, in about 16 years, we have covered about 15,000 managers on 360 feedback. Whereas in IIM, all that we could do was 70 managers across 5 years. That's all,
Okay.
maybe 70 to
Mm.
100 managers. Or ran number of assessment centers and conducted a
Mm.
whole lot of other things. So
Mm.
you are passionate about something and you want to do that, and your current organization doesn't. I mean, it's not their fault. They are not meant to be, doesn't
Mm.
facilitate this, then you have to follow your passion and create
Correct.
a kind of a setup. So the
Mm.
experiment is more in terms of. I didn't think too much because when I got my 20-year medal on 1993 December in the Louis Kahn Plaza, and interestingly, that day the medal was given by the oldest employees who used to drive me to the airport.
Yeah.
That was very nice, very touching kind of a moment. I said that, look,
Mm.
the 20-year service medal seems to indicate that TV Rao, you worked enough here. Now you go somewhere. I announced and
Mm.
resigned. And for almost about 9 months, my resignation, I mean, I didn't talk about it, the institute didn't talk
Yeah.
about it. So it was a smooth. So my take on this is that you find what you are passionate about. If
Mm.
your current organization doesn't put some restrictions,
Mm.
I think you should
Mm.
appreciate them, and then you should create your own kind of a way. And
Mm.
entrepreneurship. I mean, I heard this in your team. Entrepreneurship on day before yesterday on your 24th
Yes.
episode.
Yes.
I think
24th
many
episode.
was saying this. Entrepreneurship is going to be the order of the day. You have to be experimenting, take risks. And for me, there was no risk because I think even if you had two, three assignments, you would have got. Only thing is, you shouldn't have unlimited wants. I didn't have any limit, any big wants. You have
Yeah.
a flat to live, and I think you have enough to eat. I think
Yeah.
that puts you into a different. If you control your needs and wants and don't have aspirations of having a big bungalow with phenomenal land and chauffeur driven car and all that. Now you don't need all those. Then you are into a very, very good position to experiment, try with very careers, and who knows? I think sometimes it might take you to a totally different kind of world. So that is
Absolutely.
what I think. I think experiment, take initiative, be active, keep doing things. I mean, this is what I would say. And I think today, I mean, I have done this at the age of 50, 1993, at the age of little less than 50 years. But today, people can do it at the age of maybe 10 years before, 35.
Yeah.
35, you are already a millionaire in some of the cases. I mean, it's high time that if you are already a millionaire, you start experimenting. Who knows? You
Mm.
may go to all kinds of places. 35, 40, okay. I think you are
Mm.
doing it, I think, at the right time, aren't you?
Well, well, having a passion project for sure is one of the first things that one can do, and this is one for me. So
Yeah.
um, I would say step in that direction. But coming on that entrepreneurship element, I think
Yes.
yes, we discussed that quite a bit, and I think one gentleman who was supposed to be the guest on my episode 24, Paul Estes, has done
Okay.
enormous work on gig gig
Hmm.
economy, and he was one of the first ones to have written a book called Gig Mindset,
Hmm.
which talks about entrepreneurship in many ways. Uh, so we are in a world where at least about 5 to 10 percentage of any organization today thrives on gig workers, whether it is white collar or blue collar jobs. Talking about white collar, which is what people will on this platform will resonate more with. It requires us to have very different kind of mindsets and skill sets, which is very different than career mindset, if I can call that right. What are your views on this evolution? Is this the new norm that the world will now see, where people have to be very different and perhaps work with the freelancers mindset mode, which perhaps would be like lifelong learning, keep upgrading yourself, keep experimenting, keep taking risks. Is that the new norm? And any other thoughts that you may have around that?
I don't want to say it's a new norm, but I think it is a new thing, and I think the percentage of people who we will have to develop that set will only increase. It's
Mm.
going to, and now what is the percentage it will reach? I'm not very sure.
Mm.
I think now we are in an open world, pretty
Mm.
much open world. At least I think,
Mm.
and we have discovered what is important for us. Like I think everywhere you find mental health programs, everywhere you
Correct.
find. But having said that, it is not that everyone's mental health is great.
Mm.
Although there are exceptions like what happened in Pune. I think these
Mm.
are all inside, or
Yeah.
even what happened in recently in one of the management schools.
Correct.
Out of conflict, somebody commits suicide, etc. I think these are rare kind of phenomena, but they also bring out the importance of organizations have to be careful in terms of
Mm.
the kind of a culture that they create and so on. In 1978, a group of us went to Egypt from IIM Ahmedabad, and
Mm.
we were doing a population and development project. And we found that many people whom we were supposed to connect with in the morning, people saying that, look, I can't see you at this time because I'm doing another job, another job. We
Mm.
discovered there were three people, three jobs were being run in Egypt in the year 70s and 80s.
Mm.
Can you believe it? So today, I think that means you can have multiple employments. That is something
Yeah.
which we had seen. So if you have capabilities and if you derive satisfaction, why not? I mean, you be an executive in the morning and teach music in the afternoon. Why not? Why can't we do that? It's possible. And a
Yeah.
medical man can join a logistics company and do some logistics for pharma companies and maybe start practicing in the evening. It's all possible. So you
Yeah.
discover your talent. If you are multiply talented and you want to do that, I think that may increase, and that I hopefully increases, and that will not take away anybody's jobs. It only means that you're good at something and you practice it. If your current organization, I think people have multiple talents. It doesn't mean that you should be doing three, four things at a time, but if it is necessary, do that.
Yeah.
So I would think that entrepreneurship is on the increase. Gig work is going to be on the increase. Most organizations will probably adopt much of project-based kind of employment,
Mm.
and rather than I think only having KRAs and so on, output-based payments may come back. It
Mm.
may take a
Mm.
few years, but it will not be with AI generated
Yeah.
things help you have. I
Yes.
think 4 to 5 years, I think we are going to see a good change in the world. Good change
Mm,
in the world.
mm,
So it's good to have entrepreneurship. Entrepreneur means taking initiative, experimenting, taking risks, maybe calculated risks, and be achievement
yeah.
driven and constantly
Yeah.
discovering uh, things and
Yeah.
feeling happy with it.
Yeah.
And we are quite good in telling people that don't worry if you fail, because nobody succeeded without failure. So
Correct.
failure also has become a good experience. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a, I mean, that's what I think is likely to
Mm,
happen, but no one can predict.
correct. Well, I mean, I do a lot of coaching to mid-career folks, and one of the things that I give as an analogy when we talk about failing is like you didn't learn walking on the day you were born.
Yes.
Yeah, you had to first, learn to, walk through your knees, and then, start standing up on your 2 feet, and then you fell 100 times or probably 1,000 times before you, learned how to walk. So if that was okay, then why is it not okay now? And it kind of is an interesting one. But one question that comes to me, and there is a diverse or divergent perspective on this. You might have heard this term called portfolio careers or fractional careers that
Yeah.
is on the rise these days. Now there are two sets of people that I have spoken to. One set that believes that, as we just spoke about, that this is on the rise, this is just going to grow. People will be more entrepreneurial, and they'll do multiple jobs in a day to kind of, for whatever reasons. It could be not because of greed, but the need, to be honest. But the other set of, people who are not for this kind of work say that, you should only have, one job, or at max two, remain focused on that. Because at the end of the day, what happens is, if you take too much on, it has an effect on your health, mental health mainly. And it's your then you kind of find yourself in a situation where you're not able to manage your mental health issues, or even physical distress that one goes through. um, are there any views that you have on that, number one? And in your own journey, um, how have you managed to know what is enough or how much is enough? And what advice would you give to people?
Well, on the first question, I think it is entirely the choice of the individual.
Mm,
Some individual may be good at 2 or 3 things and want to be doing
mm,
2 to 3 things at a time.
mm, mm,
Like in my own case, I was a PGP chairman. I reviewed
mm,
the PGP curriculum. In fact, I think that is one of the best reports IIM Ahmedabad had,
mm,
1986. I was asked
mm,
to implement it. I was very happy to implement it. And when I was
mm,
implementing it, I started HRD Network. I was president of the Indian Society for Applied Behavioral Science. And as a
mm,
PGP chairman, I had to be doing, because the new curriculum required me to be constantly in touch with alumni, summer trainees.
mm,
So
mm,
number of activities I had undertaken at that point of time is unbelievably large. And I enjoyed every
mm,
bit of it. There was no
mm,
strain. So if you
mm.
are passionate about it and if you enjoy, I think you can do 3 things at a time. These are all varied things. President of
Yeah.
ISAPS is a totally varied thing. You go and work with some very difficult people at that point of time.
Mm,
And network is your beginning. You have to register. You have to convince people and so on. PGP, of course, is a different thing. So the answer to your question is, it's entirely the choice of the individual. If you're
mm,
passionate about something, you will never
mm,
feel tired. If you do the
mm,
same thing day and in day and night and work
mm.
24 by 7. In fact, I keep jokingly saying, why did Narayan Murthy limit it to 70 hours? You should have said 168 hours. If you are passionate about something, you are sleeping. When you're sleeping, and because you want to do that, you have a sound sleep, because the moment you get up, you're eating because you want to do that. I mean, that is the way
Yeah.
we lived. Whatever in IIM
Correct.
Ahmedabad, there is no difference between, I think,
Correct.
you're 24 by 7, you are there.
Correct.
So
Correct. Correct.
whether you want to have a portfolio kind of a job, or you want to
Mm,
do only one job, or
mm,
you want to
mm,
shift for a few years, I think you get fatigued
mm.
after 4 to 5 years and say, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Let me do something different. I think it is
Yeah.
entirely individual's choice. The only thing I would recommend to organizations is please give opportunity for people to discover their passion. I think
Mm,
today excessive target orientation, uh, when you employ a person full time on the job, and excessive, I think saying you work for 48 hours or 70 hours, whatever it is,
mm,
and do this, and too much of dictation, too much of KPA orientation, target orientation, that
mm.
takes away freedom, and that is what creates mental health problems. So I
Right.
would only recommend to organizations, please give space for people. In our OCTAPACE, there is a term we say autonomy. OCTAPACE, autonomy. Besides openness, trust, you also have to give autonomy. Every person should have
Correct.
some amount of 20% freedom to do what you want to
Yeah.
do. I think
Yeah.
then you are in a different kind of a. So I would entirely leave it to the individual to choose a portfolio
Yeah.
job or a single job and so on. And I have already mentioned about my own career. I have
Yes.
any point I never felt because I enjoyed every bit of whatever I did.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
was, I mean, there are nights that I couldn't sleep. I mean, 2, 3 nights I didn't sleep. Morning I'm starting a. I never felt tired or anything like that. I mean, you're passionate about it, and that is what it is. You don't think and you don't crib about it. You don't say,
Yeah.
look, I have
Agree.
sacrificed that. You are not sacrificed. You are enjoying it, yeah. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So true. So
That's
true.
what
I
it is.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree completely. I'm going to take a couple of questions from audience that has come
Yes.
in.
Sure.
One question is from Avinash Chimote. Would love to know your comparative observations on HR practices prevalent in the 1970s at L&T and Tata's.
Uh, Prevalent HR practices in 70s, I think they were good for that time. They were
Hmm.
good for the time. The good
Yeah.
welfare measures were there. In L&T, training was good. L&T was the first one to introduce grid-based training, Blake and Morton's grid. L&T was the first to introduce T-group training. So
Hmm.
there we had this Denison Pereira, who was an excellent kind of a. He was a personal manager, but he was doing all that what we expected a
Hmm.
HRD manager to do. They were pretty good. In
Hmm.
Tata's one only, I mean, I have not had so much of direct experience, but in Tata's, their philosophy was fairly given the nature of organization they had, like Telco or Tisco,
Hmm.
largely Tisco and so on. I think they were fairly welfare driven in terms of the workmen. Their focus was largely on the workmen. L&T also was
Hmm.
focus was there on the workmen. And I
Hmm.
think these were fairly comparable to even I think we heard stories from Murugappa Group and so on. I think it is the top management. In L&T, it is systems driven. In Tata's, it was philosophy driven, which was borrowed from Jamshedji and others on whom I think a lot of books are available now,
Correct.
and so on. And in the Murugappa group, it was again the philosophy driven by Murugappa group and so on. So those practices were very person specific and very
Hmm.
humane and took good care of people. It was, but today we are in a totally different world. The scale, the manpower, the scale
Yeah.
at which we are operating, no one individual can claim to know all the workmen. GD
Very
Birla
true.
go to an operator and ask, how is your son-in-law? Is he employed? If he doesn't have any job, why don't you train him to be a driver? And so on. But today, this is just not possible. With thousands and thousands of people, you can't do that. That is why we got into systems. And we are trying to create that HR philosophy, which was owned by the old men, the owners in those days, to a system, which again is never
Hmm.
possible. A system can never be human. Any
Correct.
system you implement, it will always be number driven and
Hmm.
will always have the. So I mean that's the answer I can give. They were good for that
Sure.
time,
Sure.
very good, focused on the grassroots level workmen those days.
Sure. And one question from Srinivas BSS is thank you for having the legend out here. My question to Professor Rao sir is how you draw your model of OCTPACE to the current scenario of VUCA and other newer models. In my view, OCTPACE model is so relevant. Any reflections from your side?
Yeah, I have modified Octopace and included three more dimensions to Octopace. First is
Hmm.
purpose, and I called it
Hmm.
Octoplaced. OCTAPACE. I where P is purpose because I discovered OCTAPACE is, needs to help people to focus on the purpose. Second is
Mm,
learning, openness,
mm, mm,
collaboration, trust and trustworthiness,
mm,
proactivity, authenticity, which are all important. I think these are forever. Today or tomorrow, these
mm,
values are important. They are the ones which will draw the best out of people. L
mm,
stands for learning. I think we need to, there is a
mm.
new value.
Yes.
People should be constantly learning. And it comes out
Yeah.
also a day before yesterday, your sessions. And the
Yes.
last one is what I think is very important, D for discipline. You may do
Okay.
all this if people don't follow the norms, rules, values. I think that is going to be disastrous for the company. So you have
Mm,
OCTAPACE, you promote proactivity, etc., but you also need to promote discipline. If certain things have to be
mm,
done in a particular way, I think it has to be. Why
mm.
do we wear masks when there is a crisis? If it is necessary, you have to wear masks. You wear masks. Clean your hands. That is the discipline. If you similarly, if you have to go to office on time, then you have to go to office on time. If there are flexi hours, then I think let there be flexi hours. So that is where discipline becomes a very
Yeah.
important thing. And I think that so Proctor Place completes the thing, and it is a
Mm.
fairly good kind of a culture to create. I have in my, if you visit my YouTube channel, TV Rao in
Sure.
YouTube, you can ask our friend to visit it. I have a 10-minute video on this on Proctor Place.
Wonderful. I will find that out and put it in the chat
Yes,
for
yes.
people to look into. Well, time just flies when we talk,
Yeah.
and I know I'm being very mindful about your time as well and time of the audience as well. A last question that I would have for you is any one piece of advice that you would give to any professional who's starting his career today, and what can he or she do uh, to kind of take care of their career wellness, if I can say that.
Number one, I think if you are starting your career today, you would have just graduated from a school or a college. Don't start cribbing that they taught only theory and not practice. Okay, theory has its own place. Theory is ideal, so don't worry about it.
Mm,
Open
mm,
your antennas. I think learn first about the organization. I think it's very important to look at all parts of the organization, learn the balance sheet, learn not only what you are told to do, I can learn a lot more. In fact, I would think you should learn a lot about the organization even before you join. And
correct.
number three, respect. I think it is important to respect all people around. Respect your boss, howsoever
Mm,
stupid he or she may be, howsoever
mm,
coercive he or she
yeah,
may be. It's very
yeah.
important when you start saying that, look, after all, you have come here and you are what you are. And you learn to tolerate a little bit of nuances
Mm,
because no two
mm,
human beings are equal. Nobody
mm,
can fit into the kind of expectations you may have. And
mm,
if you don't
mm,
find them, I
mm,
think you have
mm,
to modify yourself rather than asking the other person to modify this.
mm,
And treat
mm,
everyone as a source of learning. Every day is a source of learning. Every experience is a source of learning. And
mm,
take initiatives and start doing a number of things. I think do not wait for KPAs and KRAs and targets. I mean, you have to keep doing. In fact, this is what is the advice I got from one of the professors when I joined IIM Ahmedabad. This institute will never tell you what you should do. You only have to keep doing and then discover. I think that
yeah.
was the kind of
But still
I would
practiced. Still practiced.
I think that this is the advice I want to give. Organizations are beautiful platforms for you to learn. What you have
Mm,
learned in the college, don't worry too much about it. Suddenly it starts falling in place. If not in this
yeah.
year, maybe a few years later. So don't worry about that at all. It will come to
Mm,
your rescue because there are many things you learn in a college which you have not which have not been a part of your exam, but
mm,
you have managed your colleagues, you manage your teachers, you manage so many things. I think all that is coming to your rescue will help. So keep your antennas, learn and take initiative and keep doing things. This is what I would say. And you will find your way. You'll find your
yeah.
way. Life is not a neatly laid down path available for you. I think People who come for placement may promise all that, but that may not happen. You have to lay your path. That is what I would
Yeah,
advise.
yeah, yeah. And anything for people who are in their mid careers, who are going through, challenging times, not knowing what to do.
Well, I think, I think, I think one of the things is, um, see, there is a lot of this coaching thing going on all across, and I'm
Yes,
sure you are also one of the coaches. If
yes.
you, if possible, I think you don't have to have paid coaches. There are a large number of
Mm,
friends who can be your
yes.
coaches. Your parents can be your coaches. Your
Mm,
children can be your coaches.
yes,
I
I
think your
agree.
kids can be phenomenal coaches. I think keep looking for two or three good coaches. And I think identify, you see, bad times don't last long. They won't
Yes.
last long. And you matter and keep yourself in good, all dilemmas that you have, which will get resolved, not to worry.
Mm,
Time is the best solution that you will have available. Sometimes it will take days, weeks, months, it doesn't matter. Have patience, have faith in
yeah,
yourself, and keep getting support from your spouse, getting support from your good friends, colleagues, family, and so on. I think it is that is what I can advise. Not to, I think, be optimistic, and I'm sure you will suddenly discover something great, something good happens. And even if
sure.
something doesn't work the way it works at a given point of time, don't worry, it will pass. I think there is a Buddhist philosophy which says nothing is permanent, everything will pass. So
This too
it
shall
will
pass.
pass.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Incredible. There's one question that has come from Justin, which says, "What are your views on DEI as it is practiced currently in most organizations? Does corporate India need to do more in making workplaces acceptable, accessible, and inviting people with disabilities?" But I will just kind of broaden this perspective to say, does corporate India need to do anything differently than what they're doing today?
I think corporate India is quite a bit, at least verbally, they are seized with this, and there are a lot of seminars, a lot of workshops that are going on. I think there is a good degree of consciousness, and I think that's a good thing. I don't think I will have anything more to say. I think it's good. We
Mm,
should. I think there's a
mm,
little bit of our responsibility
mm.
for especially able. I think a good example is I'm sure some of you have seen this beautiful movie of Shrikant. Uh,
Yes.
so I think it's a very touching, interesting kind of thing, and like that, you people can do people with different abilities can do wonderful kind of things. I think
Yeah.
I have a feeling I would never say we are doing enough. There will always be
Uh,
some gap depending upon your expectation. But I think we are in the right direction. We are doing good things. This is what I feel.
Wonderful. I think those are kind of thoughts, but I'm going to surprise you with a couple of questions which are going to be short and rapid. So, if you were to, have one word to describe your career journey, what would that be?
Uh, Passion and commitment to a philosophy, HRD philosophy.
Okay. Okay. Lovely. A book that has profoundly influenced you.
Oh, there are quite a few books, but in the recent past, Leadership Wisdom of Robin Sharma
Okay.
is a good book. A
Wonderful.
wonderful book. I think he has all that we have been talking about in that book. Uh, if some of you have, of course, he has written many. Who will cry when you die?
Yes. Yes.
But leadership philosophy, it comes very close to the philosophy we have been talking in our
Sure.
360 and other
Sure.
kind of things. Seek
Wonderful.
feedback, manage your time, link paycheck with purpose, be
Hmm.
creative. So many interesting things of leadership. That is a profound, is a very great book.
Sure. Wonderful. One leadership trait you value the most.
Integrity.
Hmm.
Integrity includes honoring your commitments, speaking what you feel, integration between thought and word, what I think I say, and integration between word and deed, what I say I will do. That to me is integrity. So then you are honest. Never make promises which you can't fulfill, and never say things which you don't believe in. So to me, I think that is very important for
Yeah.
anyone. B, integrity.
Yeah. It's not a virtue that gets practiced off late much,
Yeah,
unfortunately, but
very unfortunately, yeah,
we should try to bring that up
yeah.
as much as possible. So thank you for that. And if you weren't in HRD, what was the alternate career that you would have pursued?
I think looking at the way things are going on, I would have joined Enforcement Directorate, not to do what some other people are doing, and stick to, or maybe a CID to investigate, and or law to
Yeah.
really bring criminals to the rather than protect criminals. But all these have to deal with uh, taking more to bring discipline in the society
Yeah.
and punish the corrupt people and
Mm.
things like that. I think police is a good. I would have probably. I may not have fitted in. I probably. I don't know if there are very short people. I'm 5'5.5".
Okay.
I would have maybe army. I would not have fitted, but I think it is because these are the people who should perform a totally
Yeah.
different role, very positive role in the society, uh, wherever you are. So, police. When I said enforcement directorate or all these come closer
Mm.
to
Yeah.
yes, I probably would have loved to be a police officer.
Well, if I were to, perhaps now you're giving me an idea, perhaps another conversation with you on what can, the forces do differently from an HR perspective could be another topic and discussion for us for sure. Like I'm sure there is a lot that we could do and that's one of the things that we did in the public policy angle as well. Like how can we take HR people management to beyond corporates, because that's where the need mostly is, and we haven't even scratched the surface, what I always feel.
Yeah, actually, HRD Network started with that objective. In fact,
Mm,
if you see the preamble of HRD Network, the objective is
mm,
to create humanness in the society. It should
mm.
have gone to schools, it should have gone to colleges, it should have gone to rural areas, it should have gone to
Yes.
NGOs. But what happens is the corporate sector is sometimes uh, so absorbing and
Mm,
limiting. Because you are absorbed, you are limited.
correct.
Unfortunately, HRD network has not gone the way we originally envisaged. It would have
Mm,
gone to, they would have been HRD network for nurses, doctors, lawyers, for the police, for the government, and things like that. But we
mm.
are even still struggling with the corporate sector. We have gone to some
Yeah.
schools and colleges and so on. But I agree with you. I think this is what is required in the society. I think HR, for me, HR is it comes out of OB,
Mm,
organizational behavior, that comes
mm,
out of psychology, and that
mm.
comes out of care for people,
Yeah.
humanness,
Mm,
entire. I think that is what we need to teach, that human
mm,
beings are human, and I think they have phenomenal capabilities. They need to be respected. They need to create atmosphere so that in whatever they're setting they are.
mm.
I think that is where all these bodies, I wish. So unfortunately, I say unfortunately because maybe there are not many alternatives. I followed Ravi Mathai model. Ravi Mathai model is build up to a point and then do not possess it. I never
Correct.
possessed the
Correct.
HRD network. In so much so,
Yeah.
80% of the current HRD network people don't know that I am the founder and founder president of HRD network, because I don't aggressively go
Yeah.
and participate in those. So as a
Yeah.
result, one of the consequences is that philosophy sometimes the original objectives get uh, sidelined.
Correct.
So
Correct. Correct.
you can't help it. Fortunately, that didn't happen for many years with IIM. I
Mm,
can't say it's an educational institution. Some of the things are
mm.
structured. Even if you do perform in a worst way, but still there will be about 500 students coming out of it.
Well, yeah, that's a topic for another day. But I hope that people listening into this are taking some inspiration about creating HRD networks for broader society, and if you're able to even scratch one community at that, probably will be a great work that we can do for ourselves, is what I would say. With that, thank you so much, Dr. Rao. Really appreciate you, joining us and sharing your thoughts. Any parting thoughts or comments that you have for people listening in?
Well, first, thank you very much. I think today is going to be a great day for you. Have a great celebration of your birthday. Happy birthday once again. And
Thank you so
I
much.
think I've enjoyed this conversation and will be quite happy. Any comments, anybody who has questions, if they can post it on your LinkedIn, I'll be happy
Yeah,
to chip in and reply.
sure,
So,
sure.
very nice. Nice having this conversation, Gopal. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And to all of you who have stayed on, listening in, or would listen to this episode through Spotify or other channels, I hope you're able to, take in a lot of inspiration through what you just heard over the last 1 hour. And the discussion about leadership, resilience, embracing change, perhaps would spark some thoughts in your own career and how you can create meaningful shifts in your journey with a little bit of risk taking ability, a little bit of entrepreneurial mindset. Dr. Rao reminded us that careers are not always linear. They are always shaped by the experiments we undertake, and that's what has happened, in his career as well as mine. If I can talk about me and the stories we create along the way. So it's not just about achieving success, about growing, continuing, and staying curious as we navigate the evolving world of work. As always, I mean, I've said this in my past episodes as well, but I'll repeat, as we face this rapidly changing landscape that demands both adaptability, courage, and lessons that we have learned so far. This one, in particular, what we heard in the last 1 hour from Dr. Rao, reminds us that resilience, humility, and willingness to learn are some of the most powerful tools. Whether you're building a career or exploring new opportunities or reflecting on your path, remember that growth comes only from being open to possibilities. I'm so excited to continue this journey with more inspiring journeys of other people and actionable insights that I can share through the episodes ahead. Until then, stay curious, stay motivated, and keep tuning into the Career Shifts podcast on LinkedIn, YouTube Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. See you soon. Keep experimenting, keep evolving, and keep the spark alive. Thank you so much.
All the best, and thank you very much, Gopal, for creating this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.